Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it will be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story, entitled Mom Smokes in House and Almost Kills Daughter. About 5 years ago, my sister, who's older than me by a few years, had a daughter. My mother wasn't a good parent and it seemed to be passed on to my sister. I'm single and my sister has a fiancé. He's pretty nice and is not bad at all. For the first few months, I helped out a lot with their daughter. I'm an aerospace engineer and I work from home most of the time. My niece spent most of her days at my house, with her dad picking her up in the evening to take her back to their house. When she was about 4 or 5 months old, her mom held a massive dinner party, which ended with my niece getting very sick. Apparently, they had made a fire in the yard and she had gotten smoke inhalation. This coincided with the start of an extremely important business trip for my brother-in-law that he couldn't miss. He didn't want his daughter to be home alone, as he knew his wife would party most of the months he was out. So my niece stayed with me for most of that time, and I grew quite attached to her. And thankfully her health made a full recovery. Fast forward to about 3 years ago, my sister's husband divorced her because she had been so negligent. But the court couldn't prove anything, so they both shared custody. About 3 months ago, my niece started kindergarten, but she was kicked out after they learned that she had no vaccines. Not only this, but she got measles. Her dad got her vaccinated in the end, but a following court battle saw her lose custody over her daughter. Her dad couldn't take care of her Monday to Wednesday of most weeks. I ended up having partial custody of her and made sure she was up to date on all vaccines. About 2 weeks ago, we learned that because of the smoke when she was an infant, she had bad asthma. Her mom still was allowed to see her every once in a while, and last week my niece stayed the night at her house for a day. Apparently, her and her friends were smoking weed and other things for hours, while my niece was locked up in her room, forced to breathe in the smoke. She passed out from a lack of oxygen and was taken to the hospital by an ambulance called by the one responsible person at the party. My sister was arrested for child endangerment and child abuse, and she's probably going to go to prison. As for the other people at the party, none knew until the end that my niece was even there. She should be fine in the end, but we're watching to make sure she's fine in the end. Next story. Woman was arrested because she thinks being a customer is a free pass for assault. Happened some years ago. Still dealing with the aftermath. I went out to buy some things from the supermarket with my boyfriend, now husband. I looked so obviously femme, even a dumb person won't think I worked at this store. For God's sake, I was wearing a dress and heels. Boyfriend is in a separate aisle. I'm quietly looking through the shelves for my things without bothering anyone when someone tugs at my elbow very sharply, almost making me stumble. It is this woman, the entitled mom of the story, glaring at me. Her teenage kid is behind her looking extremely embarrassed.
"Where do I find the wine?"
she asks. "Oh, I don't know. You should ask an employee. Please, let go of me." The entitled mom looks me up and down and says,
"You're an employee. Just shut up and help me or I will get the manager."
At this point, I've read enough stories to know how this ends. Politely told her to leave me alone and walked away. Next thing I know, something hits me in the head. Very hard. I swear to God, I genuinely thought I was dead for a second. It doesn't even hit me that something is wrong until I realize that I'm not moving, even though I think I am. The only thing keeping me grounded is that I've gripped the shelf and kept myself upright. There is a lot of yelling happening and I can't genuinely focus on what's happening. Eventually, I lose the battle and just pass out. When I came to, I was in a hospital. My boyfriend filled me in on what happened. So when I turned around and walked away, the entitled mother was so furious that she grabbed a glass jar and hurled it at my head. Whatever her faults, she had excellent aim. The wounds were severe and she pretty much cracked my skull open. People around us alerted staff and the manager came over and security detained her until the cops came. My boyfriend came up onto the scene and got me to the hospital in time. Till the end, she just kept saying that she was trying to teach me a lesson for not looking down on her. Her husband came with their children to see me at the hospital. I don't think they were ready to see the extent of my injuries. Her husband broke down in front of me and told me she wasn't the woman he loved. And later I found out through my lawyers that he served her divorce papers. Her family covered all my medical expenses without us asking. Her husband seemed like a really nice man. It's been a few years, but I always wondered why she was so angry when she clearly had a family who loved her. A part of me will always wonder that. Eventually, she was charged and sentenced to prison. The case actually wrapped up a few weeks ago. She was sentenced to 12 years in prison on a bunch of charges. Along with her jail term and her personal life falling apart, she also had to cover my legal expenses entirely upfront. Her lawyers tried every dirty trick in the book to keep the case going, but it ultimately blew up in her face because she had to pay for all the delays. She also had to pay for my therapy. That too upfront. I've been enjoying the peace for the past few weeks, staying inside my family. For a while I had some memory issues that slowly got better. For a solid year after the incident, I couldn't step out of my house because of the intense fear that something or someone would attack me. With therapy, I am better. I still can't step inside grocery stores, but I'm hoping to overcome this hurdle too. My husband, he's the boyfriend in a story, had to go to therapy too. He still sees me lying in a pool of my blood in his nightmares sometimes. I wouldn't wish this experience on my worst enemy, even though ultimately it did work out in a way, I guess. But so many lives were destroyed because of her rage. What was she so angry about? I guess I will never know. But there are silver linings. I'm pregnant with my first. And through the nausea, somehow, my little bean is giving me strength to overcome more and more each day. Anyway, the case is wrapped up, so I thought you guys would like to read the story. Thanks for sticking around. Edit. Some commonly asked questions. Did she express remorse? No, she never did. She was asked to take the stand once and it was the only time during the trial we saw her cry and break down. But even then, she blamed me for ruining her life. There was no apology and no explanation. It was a random, brutal, and senseless act of violence designed to hurt me. How are you now? Much better, thank you. Still going to therapy, still taking it one day at a time. My husband is better too. His nightmares have reduced significantly. One day this will just be a scary story. Why didn't you take her to the cleaners? A variety of reasons. I had a good ecosystem that rallied around me. My boss at the time didn't cut pay. I was a valuable employee in his organization, so they gave me paid leave. So I anyway did not qualify for missed wages. She had to pay for my therapy upfront and also my legal expenses, which were quite significant. Her husband had divorced her, so she was paying all this out of her own pocket. Whatever savings she had accumulated, this shouldn't have affected my decision, but it did. Despite everything, I never wanted revenge, just justice. What happened to her family? The day her family came to visit me at the hospital was one of the worst memories of my life. I'll never forget that day. We all broke down crying. Her children, husband, me, and my boyfriend. So many lives were destroyed because of this woman and her rage. At some point, her children, a son who looked around 11 and a daughter who looked around 16, came forward and hugged me as we all cried. I remember being so afraid but at the same time being unable to move. I literally was paralyzed by fear. I didn't even realize I was crying until the children came forward and embraced me. My boyfriend was already embracing me, crying into my shoulder. Later, we found out they had paid for all the expenses I had incurred in the hospital. We were afraid this was to avoid legal recourse, but it wasn't. I genuinely believe her husband only had good intentions. After that day, I heard they filed for divorce. Her husband never came to court. After that day, we never interacted again. Her children came to court to testify, but it was obvious to everyone watching this family was broken. The children said she was a good mother to them, but her daughter broke down crying on the stand when my lawyers asked her if she could describe that day from her perspective. It was obvious she was so terrified to see her mother in that light. After their testimonies, they didn't want anything to do with her or her court proceedings. Next story. Entitled Lady tries to challenge a semi with her vehicle. I always thought that a lot of these entitled people stories in this thread are false and made up. Today I was proven wrong. Entitled people do exist. So I drive a semi for a living, delivering pallets of merchandise to local stores. Local roads aren't easy to maneuver with 18-wheelers, so oftentimes I took up a lot of space whenever I tried to make a turn. Most drivers are nice and understanding though. They usually move out of the way, back up to give me some more room without hesitation, or some even drove out of their corner street parking spot and parked in another spot just so I can use their space to make a tight turn. Lots of nice drivers. However, today I met the rare unsung hero that made this story possible. This morning I was driving on a single lane, two-way road, and I needed to make a right turn at the end of the street so I could make it to my first delivery, which is a couple yards away from the T-junction. The T-junction has a stop sign only for my lane, so it's quite dangerous turn since the incoming traffic doesn't need to stop. The street I'm turning into is a double-lane, two-way road, but there is construction at the corner of the road occupying the right lane. That means I have to swing wide, taking up the left lane of the other way, so I don't cause an accident in the construction zone. As soon as I saw that both ways were clear, I made the turn carefully. Some vehicles came last minute from the other way, but they saw the construction so they understood, and all of them moved to the right lane, giving me space. All but one. This lady came up from the other way to the front of my truck before I finished making the turn, forcing me to perform sudden braking, which she does as well. Then she was pressing hard on her horn, and she was yelling something that I could not understand, mostly because she was still honking, but also because our windows were rolled up. She's inching closer to my truck that's on standstill while gesturing to me to move out of the way. Her turn signal is on, indicating that she's about to turn left. I gestured to her as well, shrugging my shoulders, making sure she knows, like, what am I supposed to do? I can't back up. There is another truck behind me waiting for me to finish making my turn. If I back up, I will hit the truck with my trailer tail. Mind you, it only takes me a few seconds to complete the turn, and there is no cars behind her because apparently other drivers understood to at least give a truck some space to finish a turn, especially when the roads are so tight. I also saw some vehicles turning behind me from their right lane, so there is no excuse as this Karen of a driver cannot do the same. By now she was honking probably for a full minute, refusing to reverse. This caught the attention of the construction workers. Also, this causes traffic jams from the left side of the T-junction and also behind me. People were furious and she wouldn't move. One of the construction workers told the lady to just move back and give me some room to finish my turn, but she wouldn't budge. She just yelled something at him while still pressing on her horn. After a while, I had enough of her, released my brakes, and started to inch closer towards her. I had no intention to cause any damage, just hoping that she would get scared by my threat and move back. What do you know? It worked. Her eyes widened and she panicked for a bit, switched her gear shift to reverse, and started moving backwards. I didn't give her any room to move forward again, just kept inching forward while she's moving backward, until I saw that my trailer is safe to finish the turn. Then I'm back to my own lane. Karen gave me a death glare, but I did the same to her. I also stuck my tongue out to her, because why not? Then the most hilarious thing happens. From my side mirror, I saw the construction workers clapping and cheering for me. Also, the truck behind me also made their turn, giving Karen no space to move forward again. Then the vehicles on the left side of the T-junction just kept going, not letting Karen make her turn. It was glorious. I made it to my delivery about 5 minutes late, but it was totally worth it. Next story. I threw garbage back into the car of the person who dumped it on the street. Walking through my residential neighborhood on the left side sidewalk, a humongous black pickup truck drives up from behind. He pauses a long while in an intersection for no apparent reason, then casually sticks his hand down the driver's window and drops a wadded piece of garbage right onto the street. Okay, I'm a coward. I should have dashed out, grabbed the garbage, chased him down, and so on. But I'm a woman in my 60s and just not capable of a potentially dangerous confrontation. I'm, however, a jerk capable of delayed pettiness. He makes a U-turn and parks at the house just beyond the intersection, a house undergoing construction. I glare at him uselessly as I pass, but he's parking and not paying me any attention. Okay, jerkface, let's see. Construction site, big shiny pickup truck, take out food. Obviously some out-of-town contractor who thinks he can roll up and spew garbage all over my neighborhood. Plan formulated. If the truck is still there, if its window is open, if the contractor is out of sight, and most importantly, if I can find the garbage, 20 minutes later on my walk back, I take a careful look as I go by. Truck there, window open, voices in the house but no one inside. And there is a food wrapper in the gutter, yellow with some orange Taco Bell. There is one at the foot of a boulevard at the beach. I snag it, cross over to the opposite side of the street, backtrack a bit, cross back over, then I walk past again and chuck the wrapper through the passenger side window, covering the action by pretending to adjust my hat and stroll on. Yes, I'm sure he tossed it out of the window again, but maybe he will pause a moment to wonder who exactly is watching him this time, and what judgment God is passing upon him. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.